Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the series of events that we've got today for International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day. And I'm delighted to welcome Denise Chester. She's a leading mindset coach, and she's going to be talking today about reframing your imposter. Please do put any comments or questions in the chat for Denise, and we'll come to those at the end. But welcome, Denise. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here today, and looking forward to hearing your talk.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Lisa. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be a part of this fantastic day, this initiative that you've put on. Well done to everyone that's involved in setting it up. So, how would you feel if I said you might never completely stop feeling like an imposter? But what if I told you that you didn't need to? And what if I said imposter syndrome could work for you? What if I told you that you could change your mindset so you could see it in a completely different way? Well, that's what I'm going to be talking about with you this morning. Welcome to Reframe Your Imposter. Because I think that, I'm sure you've heard the statistics that 70% of people are experiencing these imposter feelings. And I'll be talking about imposter feelings as we go through the talk. I'll be talking about imposter syndrome as well, but just so that you know, I actually prefer the term imposter feelings. So when I say imposter feelings, I'm talking about imposter syndrome as well. But when so many of us have these feelings, these experiences, as I said, the research says around 70% of us, but in my world, pretty much everybody I work with feels like an imposter at some point or another. And I keep thinking, you know, if this is the situation when so many of us are going through this, we're having these feelings on a repetitive basis, maybe we're missing something. Maybe we can see it in a different way. Maybe we can turn it around and get it working for us. I'd like us to look at imposter syndrome, imposter feelings in a very different way and think about what are we missing here. Because I think that we don't have to spend our time, our energy, our money trying to get rid of it, trying to crush it, trying to smash it, trying to shove it out of our lives completely. I think that we can actually reframe our imposter and get it working for us. So my aim for us today, for the next hour, is I'm going to talk about the 5 big mindset traps that I see and that I've fallen into and that I see people fall into that when it comes to their imposter feelings. And then I'm going to talk you through the 6 steps to reframing your imposter. So let's get started. So before we get into that, I want to talk to you a little bit about my story. Who am I to be talking about imposter syndrome? And isn't that a classic imposter syndrome question? My 2 photographs here, I think, illustrate my journey completely. I'm Denise Chester. I'm a mindset and confidence coach. I live in North London with my 2 teenage sons and our dog. And a long time ago, I had a previous business. Now, this photograph on the left here is one of the very few, maybe 2 or 3 pictures that I've got of myself back when I had my health business. I spent 3 years training to be a nutritional therapist. And then after a while of practicing in nutrition, I studied for a few months and became a gym instructor. Then I continued my education in the fitness world and became a personal trainer. I then went on to get qualified in pregnancy and postnatal training and nutrition, followed by training and education in female hormones in a broader perspective. I worked with women in their hormonal cycles. I moved deeper into that area, into perimenopause and menopause. So I was helping women going through their hormonal transitions as they moved through their life. I got more qualifications, more letters after my name. But no matter how well trained, how well educated, how qualified I was, I never, ever felt good enough. I remember this day having this photo shoot, and I can remember clearly thinking two things. One was like, who am I? Who the hell do I think I am having a photo shoot? And the second one was more about, why am I bothering to do this? Nobody's going to want to work with me anyway. What the hell am I doing this for? I had no self-belief. I had no self-confidence. I felt like an imposter all the time. I had clients. I was working with clients. I was getting good feedback. I was bringing money. I was building my business, but I didn't feel like I belonged. I felt like I shouldn't be there, like an imposter. I was always hiding myself away. So when it came to having a photo shoot done, you can see it really clearly, I think, in that picture, that there's a half smile going on there. There's nothing happening behind my eyes. I look really awkward and uncomfortable. That was me back then with my imposter feelings. Fast forward to me now having a coaching business, coaching female coaches and female entrepreneurs with their mindset and their confidence. And I feel like a different person. I hardly recognize the woman on the left there. I feel confident. I feel courageous. I believe in myself and what I'm doing. I'm happy talking about my business and my services. I enjoy showing up for myself, doing events, speaking at events like this, running workshops, webinars. I enjoy all of that part of the work that I'm doing, which is a complete transformation. So I have really been on this long journey, and the journey that I went on from the person on the left to the woman on the right it's how I formulated my 6 steps for reframing your imposter. That's what I'm going to take you through today. So let's talk about the 5 big mindset traps that I've certainly fallen into, and that I see generally people fall into one, more, or even all of these traps when it comes to creating their imposter feelings. The first one, this was me. I would call myself a recovering perfectionist. I call it this one, perfection paralysis, where nothing you do ever seems good enough. You go round and round in circles for months, years, sometimes decades, right? Feeling that nothing you do is up to scratch. It's never quite good enough. Doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're working for yourself, whether you're in an organization, whatever it is, that nothing you do is ever good enough. You're always striving for that perfection, which of course doesn't exist. Number 2, expert expectations is what I call this, where you believe that you have to be an expert. You have to know absolutely everything, right? The idea of being an expert to you is thinking that means you must know everything about your job, about your industry, about your field, about whatever the topic matter is that you're working with. And only when you know everything about it can you then say that you deserve to be there. And you can say that you deserve to be doing what you are doing. But of course, who knows everything about their field? It's very rare that we know absolutely everything. But there's this idea that to be the expert, that's what we need to do. Number 3, I call go it alone gremlins. This one is all about the idea that if you reach out for help, if you're actually asking for help within your business or your job, within your organization, that means that you've failed in some way, that you can't do what you say you do. Because if you need help, that means that you can't do what you say you can do. So you must be an imposter, right? That's the thinking behind this one. I shouldn't need any help because if I knew my stuff, I wouldn't need help. So this kind of do it yourself, feeling like we have to go it alone all the time. The next trap that I see people falling into, I call mastery misery. And this is similar, but this is where you feel like you have to learn everything and know it immediately. You have to get everything 100% right. You have to know all the methods, all the tools, all the systems, sort of almost straight away, because again, if you don't, that means you're not good enough, which means you're an imposter. We're not giving ourselves the chance to grow, to develop. We're saying immediately, if I don't know everything, then I'm not good enough, therefore I don't deserve to be here. I must be an imposter. And the last one I call Superwoman syndrome. Of course, it's Superman syndrome as well. And this is similar again, but it's where you feel like you have to be excellent in every single role you play. If you're working for yourself, for example, if you run your own business, you think you have to be an expert bookkeeper, an accountant, marketer, social media marketer, director, administrator. That's on top of providing the service that you provide. And if you can't do all of those roles perfectly, well, then you don't deserve to be running a business. You don't deserve to be calling yourself a person in business. So these are the 5 traps that I see people fall into that kind of make them feel that they're failing in some way. And that means, therefore, they are an imposter. I don't know if you can see the whole screen there. So here's the thing, right? Imposter feelings are fear-based. There's a lot of fear in there, isn't there? There's fear of failure, fear of making mistakes, fear of being exposed, of being found out. But fear is a normal part of human existence, isn't it? We're hardwired for fear. The human species has evolved and survived as long as it has, partly because of fear being hardwired into us. We need fear to tell us when we're in danger, so that, when back in the time before, when you knew you were being stalked, you could go back into your cave and be safe again. So fear is an important part of life, and it's something that we need in our lives. So trying to live without fear is a futile pursuit, because it is part of our nature. It's part of being human. But the problem is that the things that we're scared of now aren't actually dangerous to us, not inherently dangerous. It's not dangerous to ask for a promotion or a pay rise. You're not physically putting yourself in danger by starting a business or pivoting in your business. It's not physically dangerous to do social media marketing, for example, but these are all often the things that we're frightened of. So we have to accept that fear is a normal and natural part of our existence, but we need to manage our response to fear. We need to see where our fear is natural and normal and where it's creating problems for us. And I think, and I have seen this, when we can manage our response to our fear of a situation, a circumstance, etc., then we can actually change how we see imposter syndrome, because imposter syndrome comes from fear often. So when you can do this, when you can reframe your response to fear, when you can change how you see imposter syndrome, how you react to your imposter feelings, then you can begin to actually make peace with it. Now, I know for a lot of people, and if you said that to me sort of 10 years ago, I would probably have laughed in your face about making peace with my imposter feelings, but you can. I am living proof of that, and I see this all the time with the people that I work with. You can really get it working for you. You can actually learn from it. So how do we do that? I'm going to take you through the 6 steps now to reframing your imposter, and I call this the BRIGHT framework. Now, the first one is uncovering your imposter beginnings and triggers, the origins. You weren't born feeling like an imposter. These feelings, they may feel like they've been with you all your life, and they often do start in early childhood, but you weren't actually born feeling inadequate. You weren't born not believing nice things people said about you. You weren't born feeling like you didn't belong. And it's so important to uncover where your imposter feelings began, what their origins are, because when you can see where they were formed, then you can begin to unpick them a little bit. You can see that they're just a belief. When I took my A-levels, back then we didn't have email, we didn't have the internet. So you used to get your results in a letter that came in the post, that was put through your front door. And on A-level results day, I was waiting for my results. I was super excited because I had offers from different universities. I was looking forward to leaving home, going to uni, starting a new life as a student. So many things to look forward to, moving away from my hometown. Oh, I was really, really excited. And the day came My mum came up to my room with the letter. She woke me up. I was a typical teenager. I was still asleep. And I was so excited. I ripped open the envelope, and you can imagine my shock when I discovered that I'd actually failed one of my A-levels. And it was a real shock because I was not expecting that at all. I was on target to get relatively good grades. So it was quite, it was an actual physical shock. I felt devastated. All my future dreams kind of disappeared in an instant because I didn't have the right grades. I wouldn't be able to go to the universities that I'd chosen. I wouldn't be able to leave home. I wouldn't be able to start this new life. I was trapped. And in that moment, what I needed, I guess, was support and compassion. But my mum said to me, "You're not as clever as you thought you were." Now, in that moment, that was a pivotal moment in my life. An idea formed. I felt stupid. I felt like a failure. I felt dumb. I felt like, wait, hang on a minute. I thought I'd been relatively clever or had some level of intelligence, but now I'm finding out that I don't because I've failed. And my mum's telling me that as well. In the end, I did go on to university and I did get my degree. Not that's necessarily worth anything, but I was able to do that. But the whole time I was there at university, I felt like an imposter. I felt like I didn't really deserve to be there. I felt as if I'd almost taken someone else's place. I never felt like I was on a par with my fellow students. I always felt a little bit behind, like I was always running to catch up. And it wasn't until years later that I had kind of done a lot of work and really sort of dug deep into my thoughts and my beliefs. And I thought, and I could think, wait a minute, it's not true. I'm not a failure. I'm not stupid. I'm not dumb. That was something that came from outside of me. My mum was a teacher, and I think it was just her world. I think she was as shocked as I was. I think, she probably regretted saying what she said. But our imposter origins, our imposter beginnings are usually coming from something outside of us. Something that somebody said, something that we overheard, something we saw, that we read, even a thought that we had about ourselves, but that we have this idea, we internalize it, we repeat it, this one idea that becomes a belief, that becomes our story, our sort of negative narrative. But when you can look at those and say, wait, that was just an idea that was created when my mum said something a bit mean about me, it's not actually true, then that empowers you to begin to unpick and unravel those beliefs. Now, that story shows that your imposter beginnings can start, later in life. But for a lot of people, they begin in early childhood. And there are some common family dynamics that can create imposter beliefs that can be the beginnings, the origins of your imposter syndrome. I'll just run through a few of those now. Like in my family, academic success being highly valued. It's really important to your parents or your caregivers that you do well at school, that you pass your exams, that you go on to university. And if you don't, that leaves you feeling like a fraud, like a failure. It gives you these doubts, imposter feelings. Perhaps your parents wanted you to achieve a certain professional status, to be to go into medicine, to be a doctor, or to be a lawyer, to be a vet, to be an architect or an engineer. And you may follow that path. You may follow your parents' dreams. But if it's not aligned with you, who you are and what you want to do, when you get into that profession, you're going to feel fraudulent. You're going to feel fake. It's not really what you want. It's not really who you are. You're never going to feel like you belong. If you have a sibling or siblings, what was your label? I was the practical one. Often there's a sensitive or emotional or artistic, creative child. And the implication can be that you're not the clever one. My sister was the clever one. I was the practical one in my family. So what labels were you given when you were growing up? Perhaps you had the other experience where your parents told you that absolutely everything you did was incredible, it was wonderful, every single piece of artwork you brought home was amazing, everything was about you was fantastic. And then when you kind of went out into the real world and faced your first pieces of criticism or found out that not everything that you did was amazing, that can shatter your sense of self. Have I been living a lie all along? Was I, my parents said I was great, but maybe I wasn't. That can give you imposter beginnings. I don't know who I am anymore. I'm a fake. Perhaps you were the first one to stay on and do A-levels or go to college or go to university. And that pressure then is on you to be the first one to go into a profession, for example, or to open a business or to buy your home. There, you were never going to feel quite good enough because you're supposed to be this person. And again, you're not matching up to that. So you don't feel like you fit. You feel like an imposter. And another one is where winning is the only option. You have to come first in whatever you do. If you're second, you might as well be last. That sets you up for feeling like you have to achieve a certain standard. And if you don't, again, that leaves you feeling like a fake, a failure, a fraud. So these are dynamics in early childhood. But like I said, one of my big beginnings was when I was 18, around my A-level results. And I had another enormous pivotal moment when I was in my mid-20s, when I was working in the corporate world, which was another beginning, another origin of huge negative belief about myself. So I just want to highlight the point that yes, it does begin for many of us in childhood, in early life, but it can happen at any point in life. I mentioned triggers. Triggers are the things that elicit imposter feelings. They push us into that imposter cycle, the things that make us feel like an imposter. Our beginnings created the belief, often that we're not even aware of, and our triggers trigger those feelings. So for me, I had what I call my new client trigger. In my health business, whenever I signed a new client, I'd be like, yeah, I've got a new client. And then I'd be, oh, what if I can't help them? What if I don't know enough about their problem? What if I make a mistake? Oh no, what if they know more than me? I'm going to look really stupid. Oh no, I've got a new client. I would go through this cycle really quickly of being yay excited to, oh my God, I've got a new client, almost dreading it. And our triggers are often new situations. A new job, a new project, a new role. Perhaps you're starting a new business or pivoting in your current business. Maybe your triggers are you're looking at your perceived competition, maybe someone in your industry, or maybe somebody within your own organization, or even within your own team. Perhaps it's an event that you have to do, that you're expected to do, or maybe it's just showing up at a meeting. I used to have daily 8 a.m. meetings when I was in the corporate world, which I would sit in, and half the time I'd be thinking, I've got no idea what these people are talking about. I don't know. I don't understand the language. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't deserve to be here. I don't fit in. I'm not right. I'm an imposter. But the point is, when you know what your triggers are, you can prepare for them. You can put things in place, if you like, to stop you going into that imposter cycle. If I'd been able to see, if I'd kind of been able to take a step back and see that every time I got a new client, I would feel like an imposter, then I could have put steps in place to stop me going down that route, stop me going down that path. It can also be people, can't it? Somebody that you work with. It could be a colleague. Maybe it's a trainee. You're asked to train someone and you feel like, wow, maybe they're going to know more than me, or I don't know enough, or who am I to train someone else? A leader in your organization, can even be family and friends. But these circumstances, situations, people, these are the things that repeatedly push us into our imposter cycle. And when you know what they are, when you can become really clear on that, you can prepare for them. Step 2 is to recognize, right? What are the thoughts, to be able to articulate and recognize the thoughts, the feelings, and the behaviors that we demonstrate when we're triggered. So our thoughts are electrical impulses which trigger the release of chemicals in the body, which we experience as feelings. And these feelings make us behave in certain ways. And our behavior makes us have more thoughts and more feelings, and we go round and round and round in a cycle. Often we're not aware of this. These are we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. 95% of those are repeated, habitual. We're not even aware we're having them, but they kick off this cycle of thinking, feeling, and behaving, which takes us down the path of the imposter feelings. So being aware, we can't change something that we're not aware of. So we have to bring this cycle into our awareness so that we can begin to make changes. And how do you do that? Well, you can ask yourself, what am I feeling and where in my body? So when I was triggered with my new client, for example, I would feel like a tightness in my tummy and even my pelvic floor. I'd feel a heaviness, a constriction in my chest. My throat would feel like it was being squeezed. I'd feel hot and cold running through my body. That was fear. That was fear that I was feeling. And I was feeling it in different locations in my body. And then when you can articulate the feelings and where they are in your body, you can then ask yourself, what is the thought behind the feeling? Because it's always a thought that triggers the feelings. That's how it works. You need to get to the thoughts behind the feelings. What am I thinking? And then you can look at, how do I behave when I have these thoughts and feelings? What are the repetitive, habitual behaviors that I display that keep me thinking and feeling these ways? So for me, with my new client trigger, my thought would be, I don't know enough. I'm not good enough. I don't know enough to help this person. I'm not an expert, which would trigger these feelings that I described, which are fear, anxiety, and shame. But I can feel them in specific locations in my body. And my action would be to go into overdrive, into overwork, in an attempt to prove that I wasn't an imposter. I would over prepare. I would spend hours and hours researching whichever health problem my client was bringing to me, regardless of how familiar I was with it, regardless of how well I knew it, how many times I'd worked with that particular problem. I would spend hours in case I'd forgotten something or there was new research. There's nothing wrong with researching, obviously, but there's a big difference between keeping up to date with the current research and just obsessively going over and over the same information. Step 3 is to look at the impact, understanding the impact and the influence that these patterns of thought, feeling, and behavior have had on you. Now, it might feel like it's obvious. I know I feel awful. That's the impact. It stopped me progressing in my career. It stopped me setting up my own business. It stopped me asking for a promotion. It stopped me having relations. But we need to be able to look at the broader picture, because it's not just our career. It impacts our families. It impacts our relationships with our families and our friends. It impacts our relationships with our colleagues, with our clients, with the clients that we never had because we weren't able to reach out to them. It impacts our mental, emotional, and physical health. Now, the ripple of imposter feelings is quite wide. Once you see how these thoughts, feelings, and behaviors have impacted your life and everything in it, that gives you the desire, the motivation to change. Because once you've seen that, there's no way you want to carry on living like that. Once you see quite extensively how it has impacted you, then you're going to be like, wow, I can't live like this anymore. I really want to change. So the impact on me of my new client trigger was, as I said, to do hours and hours of research. And I was exhausted, right? I was working with clients during the day or trying to build my business. And then in the evenings, I'd spend hours poring over books, over the internet, looking at the same material. And I was just completely knackered, but it had much broader impact on me. So the more time I spent researching a particular health problem, the less time I had to actually spend with clients. So I couldn't see as many clients as I wanted to, which directly impacted my ability to bring income in. I was less effective as a nutritionist because I didn't believe in myself, because I kept doing all this research. If I knew my stuff right, I wouldn't need to do the research. The fact that I had to do the research meant I wasn't good enough. I didn't deserve to be a nutritional therapist. So I had less belief in myself the more I went round and round in this cycle. I didn't have a life, didn't have a social life, because I was so busy trying to redo all this extra work on top of the work I was already doing. And of course, it impacted my mental health. I felt isolated. I felt lonely. I felt like a failure, like I was always playing catch up, like I was never good enough. It had a really dramatic impact on my mental health. So those first 3 steps are looking at the beginnings and the triggers. Looking at the patterns of thoughts, recognizing the thoughts, the feelings and the behaviors that we have, and then looking at the impact and the influence they've had on us and our lives. The next 3 steps are kind of moving forward, taking us away from that, looking us into a better future, and looking at your strengths, your successes, acknowledging your achievements and the successes you've had. Recognizing your strengths and your skills is a huge part of this, because when you're constantly focusing on the negative, that's where your energy is. That's all you think about, because you're thinking all about what you can't do, what you don't know. And when you begin to acknowledge your achievements, it begins to change that narrative. It gives you, we're looking for evidence all the time, aren't we? Evidence to prove that we can do this, or that we're good enough, or that we're not a failure. And actually recording our strengths, our achievements, our successes gives us this body of evidence that we so badly crave. So let me ask you, how do you mark your achievements? I remember when I qualified as a coach, I did a year-long coaching qualification. It was a really intensive course. I had to do, I think, 70 hours of coaching just to get through the qualification. And some of that was paid coaching. I submitted a portfolio of over 100 pages of research, reading, reflections, session notes. It was a huge, enormous piece of work. It took up a year of my life, just over a year of my life fully. And I knew I'd passed because I'd already found out I'd passed, but we all met, the cohort of students met for, we went for a curry. We went to Dishoom. If you like curry, you've got to go to Dishoom. And we had a fantastic meal. And then our course provider, our tutor, came to hand out around the table our certificates. When she handed me my certificate, I was like, yes, I'm a coach. Yes, I've done it. I'm a qualified coach. And about a nanosecond later, I was thinking, oh God, I'm a coach. I don't know how to coach people. I don't know all the methods. I don't know all the techniques. I can never remember the great coaching questions. Oh no, this is going to be a disaster. I'd gone from being qualified to thinking about my future failures. They hadn't even happened yet. Even though, as I said, I've been working with coaching clients, I've been being paid for as part of that. And I had successes. My clients were having transformations, things were happening for them in their lives, but I still focused immediately on what I didn't know. And that's what we do so often, isn't it? We achieve something, but we completely dismiss it. We focus on our lack. We focus on what we don't know. We forget what we've just done, and we focus on what we haven't yet done. And we do this all the time. We ignore or downplay. We ignore our successes because we don't recognize them as successes. We think it might be luck. Oh, I only got here because so-and-so put me connected with so-and-so else. I only got as far as I am with the help of these other people, attributing our success to other people. The problem is, if you never recognize your achievements, your successes, it feels like you never have any. It feels like you're always failing, or you're always just kind of plodding along, but nothing is ever getting achieved. Your energy is focused on what you don't know and what you haven't done and what you think you're going to fail at, rather than all the great things that you have done, all the successes that you've had. So it's so important to mark achievements and successes as you go. How can you do this? Well, two of my favorite methods are the success journal and the evidence wall. The success journal is literally writing down at the end of each day. Do it as a daily practice, a couple of things or more that went well for you. They don't have to be gigantic successes like qualifying as a coach or getting a promotion. You can, and you should, record the smaller successes, the smaller achievements, the mini ones, the micro ones. You had a good conversation with someone. Somebody paid you a compliment or gave you some great feedback. You, I don't know, you achieved something in a project. You moved a step forward. You did something in your business. You posted on social media. You engaged in a conversation with someone. You had a good thought about yourself. You caught yourself thinking negatively and you were able to stop it. Write it down every day in your success journal. This does two things, really. It gets your brain in the habit of looking, actually actively looking for things that have gone well for you that day, things that pushed you forward, things that you can celebrate. And it begins to collate this evidence that we want, right? You can come back to your success journal frequently, and you should, particularly when you're feeling a little bit shaky or you're pushed into your imposter cycle, you're triggered and you're feeling you can't do this, I'm an imposter, I don't deserve to be here. You can come back to this journal and you can read it and you can think, wait, maybe I can do A, B, and C because look, back then I did X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's possible that I can do this because I've already done it before. I have achieved things. I have been successful, so I can go on to be successful in the future. So write down at the end of each day at least a couple of things that you've achieved or that are successes. And then the evidence wall. Now, there are two ways you can do this. So I'm sure you've all seen a crime drama or a police movie in the police station or the precinct where they have a wall and they've got a picture of the victim, a picture of the suspects. They've got documentation, drawing, lines, putting it all together. This is what I'm talking about, creating an wall of evidence. Now, you can do this virtually. There are plenty of apps, the apps for vision boarding. You can use those apps and create your virtual, your digital evidence wall. But you can actually make a real life one, and that's what I prefer to do. Buy yourself a cork board and pin things to it, or a whiteboard and use magnets, put photos on there, put certificates on there, print out emails, print out feedback that you get, put drawings up there that represent something to you, write little notes of things that you feel proud of, things that went well for you. You can stick it all on there, create your own evidence wall of all the things that are going well for you, all your successes and all your achievements. And again, if you have that in a prominent place, if you put it on your phone, you can look at it frequently. If you have a home office, maybe you can't do it in an organization, but if you have a home office, stick it somewhere where you can see it all the time. Again, it gets your brain looking for the things that went well and starts to take you away from thinking about what you don't know. And of course, it's really important to celebrate your successes, right? You don't have to go out for dinner and crack open a bottle of champagne. It can be, go out in the sunshine or go and stick your feet in the grass or call a friend and tell them about something. Or, I don't know, run around the room with your arms in the air, give yourself a high five in the mirror, or give your dog a hug, whatever it is. Stop, take the time to mark your achievement, mark your success, and celebrate it in whichever way feels right to you. Strengths are something slightly different. And often when I talk to my clients about their strengths, they say they don't have any. They don't feel like they have any strengths or skills. They've forgotten them, or they don't recognize their skills as strengths. They think it's just normal. Or they feel like if they talk about them, they're going to be kind of arrogant and showing off and conceited, or that they are somehow deceiving me, they're deceiving people, that they don't really have these strengths, even if they say they do. And one thing that I love to share with people is it's Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, which is, I think, 9 categories of different areas where you can look and you can kind of begin to tick off, if you like, the skills and the strengths that you have. Because often, if, say, for example, you're working in tech, you're in the tech industry, and you think about your strengths, you tend to think of your strengths only in terms of your technical abilities, your abilities to do your job in your field. But we have so many broader skills and strengths. We often forget that. We can be quite narrow in the way we look at it. So the multiple intelligences are things like interpersonal skills, how you communicate with other people, and intrapersonal skills, how you manage yourself and your emotion, but also things like logistical skills, visual and spatial, how well can you create images and recognize images, musical, not just creating music, but how well can you keep a beat, for example. What physical skills have you got? What about sport or exercise or creating things with your hands, cooking, a whole massive range of skills. So I think when we look at our skills, looking at the theory of multiple intelligences is super helpful in broadening our acceptance, our recognition of all of our skills and our strengths. And again, if you keep a list of that, it compiles more of the evidence that we look for. The next step is to create new thoughts. I talked about our old thought patterns, these patterns of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that we've often had for decades, right? Some of us have been carrying these negative stories, these negative beliefs around for most of our lives. We need to be able to replace them with healthy, helpful, empowering, supportive beliefs, thoughts, and feelings, so that we can counter those limiting beliefs, those stories that have kept us stuck, those ones that have held us trapped and kept us fixed in a certain place. We can begin to use these new beliefs to cultivate confidence and courage. And when you change the way you think, you're changing your whole mindset. And when you change your mindset, you create a whole new reality for yourself. So one question that you can ask yourself is how, when you realize that you're thinking in your old thought patterns, when you're bringing your thoughts into your awareness, that, for example, my thought about I'm not good enough, what's an alternative thought that you can hold? What's an alternative way that you can think about this? Now, our thought patterns, I think of them like ski tracks. We have the same thoughts over and over again, like skiers following the same tracks because it's easy, it's familiar, and we create this deeper tracks. Our thoughts become like the ice and snow, more compressed, more compacted. They're much deeper down there, if you like. So we have to be able to question those old negative thoughts and beliefs, those old narratives, by asking ourselves what's something else we can think about ourselves. We need to be able to create new ski tracks. And it's not always easy to go from I can't do this to yeah, I can smash this thing, because it's too much of a leap. But can you think about the possibility that you deserve to be here, that there's a possibility that I got here on my own merit. There's a possibility that I can do these things that I say I can't. So take small steps, begin to shift your beliefs, your thoughts, your ideas. Now, this takes practice. It has to be a conscious choice. We have to sort of cover over the old ski tracks, stop going down those old ones. And you may have had this experience where you feel like you're making progress, you feel more confident, you feel a bit stronger, and then kind of suddenly you notice that you've gone back to your old patterns of thinking, your old behaviors, your old feelings. And this happens because the mind hates a vacuum. It's great to stop thinking in your old thought patterns, but if you don't replace them with new ones, your mind, when it's stressed, when it's triggered, would just go back to those old ski tracks because they're familiar. We know those ones. They're easy to get down. It's just going back into the familiarity. So you have to create new thinking by questioning, and it will feel awkward to begin with. When you're telling yourself, you might not even believe the things that you're thinking to yourself. I don't know that I can do this. And that's why I talk about possibility, talking about is it possible? Yes, it's possible that I can do this. It's possible that I don't know this thing now, but I can go and learn it. I don't have this skill now, but I can go and acquire it. But it has to be conscious. We have to make a conscious decision, and we have to be intentional to bring our awareness into our thoughts, going back to that question, what is the thought behind this feeling? And then What is an alternative thought or belief that I can try on for size? And with this kind of work, this shifting of our thoughts, these introducing new, healthy, helpful thought patterns, it's like learning a new language. It's like learning to play an instrument. It's like learning anything new. You're not going to get it straight away. It's going to feel a bit weird, a bit awkward. It's unfamiliar. So you have to consciously and intentionally keep thinking these new thoughts, have them on repeats. You can put your favorite new thoughts on a post-it note or somewhere on your phone, stick it somewhere you're going to see it, and repeat it to yourself often, these new ideas about yourself and what you are actually capable of. Make a choice to leave the old ski tracks behind, create new ski tracks, and keep going down the new ski tracks until they become the habit. They become the familiar path. They become your repeated habitual thoughts that you don't even have to think about it. The final step is embodying. It's embracing your new mindset, your new narrative to deepen the mind-body connection, because this is not just an intellectual exercise, right? Your body has to get on board. It has to get the message too. My nephew got married, and just before the ceremony was due to start, he came and said what's it called? The best man was held up. There was a crash on the M25 or something, and he wasn't going to make it. But they had the rings there with them, thankfully. And he asked me if I would be the one to hand over the rings at the point in the ceremony. And I was like, oh my God, what a responsibility. There's all these people. I'm going to have to get up in front of all these people that I don't know. But then I thought, how exciting, how I'm so honored and touched that he asked me out of everybody else. And I was really grateful for him. And I felt, very, very moved that he'd asked me to hand over, to be a part of the ceremony like this. So when the time came and the celebrant said, and now we asked Denise to bring the rings, my body just went into almost freeze, really. I stood up, I only had to walk about 4 steps, but I was like kind of stiffly walking over. I had this really weird grin fixed to my face, like shaking as I handed over the rings. My body did not get the message that I was excited and honored to be doing this thing, be taking this action. So it's really important that we have to get our body, we've talked about the habitual thoughts and feelings, but we have habitual physical responses to our thoughts and feelings. So we change our thinking, which changes the way we feel. We also have to change the way we behave. Now, have we got time? Very, very quick exercise. Don't worry, you don't have to move. You don't have to get up from your seat. It's going to take about 30 seconds. I'm going to ask you to take 2 different postures and say 2 different things. So the first one, I'm going to ask you to kind of curl in on yourself as if you were afraid, as if you were feeling like an imposter, feeling ashamed, feeling like you wanted to hide, feeling like you don't want to see anybody, that you shouldn't be here, you don't deserve to be here. Your spine is hunched over, you're closing in on yourself. And I want you to say out loud, I feel confident and optimistic. I feel confident and optimistic. Probably feels a bit weird. And now we're going to do the opposite. So you're going to do arms in the air in that winner's pose, like you've just won a race. So your hands are up, palms are spread, fingers are open, arms in the air. You can chin up a little bit. Your chest is out. You're nice and proud. You've just won a race. And now I want you to say out loud, I feel pessimistic and a failure. I feel pessimistic and a failure. Again, it feels weird, right? It feels wrong. And it is wrong for our body systems. It doesn't match up. It doesn't make sense. It's virtually impossible to feel pessimistic when you're in that winner's pose. So we need to be connecting our mind and body, taking action that it aligns with our new thinking, our new mindset. So one way we can do this is to think about what action can you take to demonstrate your new mindset. What can you actually do? If you imagine yourself as a confident, courageous person in doing the things that you want to do, what will you actually do? So I'll give you some examples. Say you want to become a writer. Maybe your dream is to write a book, but you've never felt good enough. You don't think you deserve it. Who am I to write a book? Can you commit to writing, I don't know, 3 blog posts and publishing those a week for the next 4 or 5 weeks? If you are, maybe you want to speak up more in meetings, but you struggle to raise your voice or to raise your hand, can you ask a trusted colleague perhaps to ask you a question in a meeting so you can answer them, so you can speak and use your voice in a meeting, but you don't have to initiate it yourself. You're responding to a question. Perhaps you want to go live on social media to promote your business, but you're terrified of it. I used to be absolutely terrified of going live. I used to try and press the button. I never could. But can you go record yourself on camera? I mean, the beauty of that is obviously you don't have to share it with anyone, but you can record yourself and you can get used to being someone that goes on camera. What actions can you take to demonstrate your new healthy and helpful thought patterns? Think of something that you would do when you're that confident person and do it. Those are the 6 steps that take you through thinking in your old patterns to your new patterns, that allow you to reframe your imposter. But I want to say to you that this is normal, right? The feelings that we have, these imposter feelings, are normal. The vast majority of the population have them. They are fear-based. They are normal. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. It's a normal response to a lot of the situations that we find ourselves in. But it's your mind, okay? It's your mind trying to protect you. Your mind thinks that if it makes you feel fear, you won't take any action, which will reduce your risk of being hurt, of being ignored, criticized, rejected. If you don't take any action, you won't get hurt. If you don't try anything, you'll never fail at anything. So your mind is trying to help you. So this is a normal response to have, that you're having when you have your imposter feelings. But the problem is, instead of keeping you safe, it's keeping you stuck. I talk about the being caught in the safety trap. You feel safe when you hide away, when you don't take action, but really you're stuck. It's creating problems because you're not getting where you want to in life. You're not doing the things that you want to do. It's this normal fear response. It is normal, but it's a problem because it's keeping you stuck. And this is when you can really begin to think about reframing. I want you to start to think, when you've uncovered your triggers, right? When you can see what your triggers are, you can begin to see the things that often push you into the imposter cycle, your imposter response, whether it's procrastination or overwork, like I went into overwork. I want you to start seeing those triggers as signs of potential, right? Of an opportunity for growth. What new opportunities are you presented with? This new project, this new job, this new client, this new team member? What is there in front of you that's making you feel these feelings, but actually is potential? We so often see our imposter feel, we respond to our imposter feelings as it's telling us to stop, to hide away. That's what we feel like we want to do, but they're telling us usually to go forward, to grab this opportunity, to take this potential, to take action and to make progress. And, this is it, isn't it? When you know your triggers, when you know what's going to trigger you, when you can see where your thoughts came from in the beginning, and they're not true, they were just ideas that someone planted in you. When you know what triggers you and your pattern of responses, and you know how to change your thinking patterns to have your new healthy, helpful ones, you can use your new thoughts and feelings and behaviors to turn your imposter into a guide. You can ask, what's it showing me? What's the potential in front of me? What's the opportunity? You can recognize that what you're feeling is fear, acknowledge it and accept it, and don't be criticizing yourself because it's normal. But you can say to yourself, okay, this is discomfort. I know that it's going to be temporary. I know that this isn't going to last forever. And the more you do the things that you're uncomfortable with, the easier they become, and the more your comfort zone expands. Things that you found difficult before will start to become easier. You can manage the way you respond to your fear. You can change how you think, which changes how you feel and how you act. And when you can reframe your response to fear, you have reframed your imposter. So I just want to finish up with this quote, one of my favorite quotes: your mindset can change the outcome without changing the facts. You can be in the same environment, situation, with the same people, doing exactly the same thing, but get a completely different result, a completely different outcome, just by changing your mindset, by changing how you think. Just changing the way you think can give you a completely different result. I really love that. I hope you could think about that. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you. I would love to connect with you on social media. Hang out most of the time here on LinkedIn. So just search for me under Denise Chester. I am on Instagram as well. You can find me at mindset coach _ Denise. And please reach out and connect with me. And if you DM me the word Imposter 100 as a gift for being with me today or watching this on the replay, I'll share a code with you for a discount on my online digital Tame and Reframe Your Imposter course, which takes you deeper into those 6 steps. So thank you so much for being here today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Denise. That was so enlightening. I would love to be able to open up for questions, but we're right up to the time on this event, and we have another event starting in literally a couple of minutes. So anyone listening, please do take a note of Denise's contact details that are on the screen at the moment if you do have any questions, or get in touch with us via the Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day social media channels. Denise, thank you so much again for coming today and talking to us all. We'll be back in literally 2 minutes for a Q&A session with myself and Dr. Juliet Lindell. And we're going to be talking about narcissism and the link with that to imposter syndrome. Thank you again, Denise, and we'll see you at the next event in 2 minutes. Thank you.